right, guys, we are going to talk about chapter 4 now, which is the writing process. Again, remember this is part of the video lecture, so watch chapter 4 and chapter 5, and then make sure that you do the APLIA for chapter 4, which is the online assessment questions, and then the discussion board that has to deal with chapter 4 as well. So APLIA is only for chapter 4, discussion board is only for chapter 4. So chapter 4 talks about the writing process, and this chapter is important, but I also like to stress to my students that this isn't an English class. So I'm not going to go over and go into great detail all of the technical things that come with business writing, because you can learn that in English class, right? A lot of them overlap. So we'll do some examples, and again, just follow along with the PowerPoint slides. Right now I'm on the first slide, which is the title slide. When you think about writing, if someone says to you that you need to write something, you probably think, okay, blank sheet of paper, let's just start writing, you know, and then you'll go back and edit, and then you'll go from there. But there's actually kind of a step-by-step process that you need to follow in order to make sure that your writing is the most effective and that it achieves the purpose the most easiest. And a lot of people don't think that the first step to that is audience analysis, but it is. You kind of have to know who your audience is, who's going to be reading this writing before you actually turn it in, submit it, or give it to the audience itself. So you want to make sure that you know who the audience is and have a good understanding of who your audience is so that you can tap into that and target specific aspects of your audience. The next slide, the learning objectives for the chapter, is the actual step of the writing process. So audience analysis, so analyzing your audience for communication. Planning the purpose, content, and organization of your message. Composing the first draft of your message. Revising for content, style, and correctness, and then finally proofreading. So you can see the third slide then is the step-by-step actual process chart. So audience analysis will go into each of these in greater detail, but again, you're just studying relevant aspects of the receiver, you know, the end user of who's going to be reading this writing that you're making. Planning is determining the purpose, content, and organization. Drafting is composing a first draft. Revising is just the editing, and then proofreading is just checking the final document, or checking the document for a final time for all errors and any and all errors. Moving on to slide number 4, audience analysis. So you want to make sure that you approach this strategically, and by that you want to make sure that you are having a very analytical view of your audience. Looking at the next slide, slide 5, what's the value of analyzing your audience? I mean, what value does that provide to you as the writer when you are writing this? It's important. You know, these are the people that are going to read your work. And then you need to be able to determine what you need or how they're going to react. You know, are you writing something that your audience is already against? So you need to make sure that you tap into that argument. Is this an audience that's already for or pro what it is you're writing? So you just want to emphasize current things. Slide 6, remember this about your audience. No one's perfect, right? There is never going to be a perfect audience. You're going to have some sort of fault or flaw, or there's going to be something wrong with your audience, or something that you're going to have to look within yourself and make sure that you address, or a challenge that you're going to have to address with your audience. Most people are honest and reasonable. You know, you need to give your audience credit. If they don't like something, then they're going to hopefully be honest and tell you, but they're not just going to cut you down. So make sure that you remember that. People don't like to be talked down to. A lot of times people don't realize that they are doing this in their writing, but you don't want to talk down to people, right? You want to talk to them on the same level that you would talk to anybody else. People need specific information. We will cover this again later in the chapter, but when we say specific information, we talk about making sure that you don't reiterate things that they already know, but you also don't leave out things that are maybe crucial to the message that you just assume they know. So making sure that you know what that specific information is. People want to know what they're going to gain by taking action. This is something that you should lay out clearly in your writing. And then most people would react to your message the same way you would if you had received it. So think of that and make sure that you keep that in your mind as you continue writing. Moving on to the next slide, slide 7. It says at the top, example, changing housekeeper hours, but that was an example that I omitted simply because this is a video lecture and it's kind of hard to do that with your video audience. So, but keeping in mind the same 5 questions that we ask when we are doing this example, these are the 5 key questions you want to ask yourself for an audience analysis. 1, who is your audience? The chapter talks about primary versus secondary audience. and making sure that you know the distinction between the two. You know, your primary audience is the initial people that are reading this, the people that are hearing your message or getting your message firsthand. The secondary audience is based on that, or based on any actions taken from that message. Who is it going to ultimately affect? What is your relationship with the audience? Like, what is your status with them? Are you higher up? Are you lower than your audience, lower status, you know, in the organization? Is this an internal audience? Is it an external audience? If it's an internal audience and this is a company memo, you probably don't need to spend a lot of time wasting your time and the audience's time writing things about the organization that people probably already know, right? They probably already have a good sense of the organization or the history and the background of the company or the who we are section. However, if it's an external audience, you do want to make sure that you do cover those things, because not everybody is as privy to the organization, privy to your organization or the background of your organization as you are. How will your audience likely react? Again, they're going to react the way that you would if you'd received it. If you are expecting a negative reaction, then you have a sales job on your hands. That you need to make sure that you touch into those key components that's going to make the negative reaction end up as a positive one. What does the audience know? Again, this talks about that specific information. So help decide how much and what specific information you need to include. And then what is unique about the audience? Once you understand that component of what's unique about your audience, it's making sure that you key into those extra touches that make your writing special. It says to your audience member, whoever is reading your writing, that you are doing something special to key into me. You have taken something that you have researched or you've found out about me, and you have tapped into that, and your audience will appreciate that. The second learning objective now is planning your writing. So planning is more of a decision-making process. Again, we're looking at the purpose, content, and organization. Identifying specific objectives. When you think of objective, think about, why are you writing this message, right? What are you being tasked with? What is the purpose of this? If you do not know why you're writing this message, you will not know when you are done writing. You will never know when you have achieved your objective. That's very hard to say. So once you know that what your purpose is or what you're trying to achieve out of this, it will make your writing go so much easier. So if you think of a communication example, or you think of a writing example, you had to have had some sort of purpose as to why you were writing it, right? And then that was ultimately the way that you knew that you were finished with said writing. So making sure that you understand that and knowing what that purpose is or what you're trying to achieve is crucial for your writing to be successful and effective. Sorry. I learned from chapter 3 that it is helpful to have something to drink, and this is coffee, while you're talking excessively. Moving on to organizing. Again, we said at the beginning of the video, you do not want to sit down and just start writing. You don't want to just sit down and say, okay, here we go, I'm going to write start to finish. So helping yourself understand what information you want to include, the book talks about tools that you can use, one of them being a mind map. I'm on now slide number 10. So using a mind map to plan the content. You start there in the center, if you look at the slide, with a message purpose. Once you have that message purpose, again, that's crucial for you to actually kick off the writing, the audience analysis, and then understanding your purpose. You talk about then, you look at your possible points. So this writer has 4 possible points, and 2 of the points actually have further details attached. The other 2 points don't have anything. So that should signify to you automatically that there's probably not a lot of meat on those bones to enhance your writing or to provide any information to the reader. So you probably want to negate those 2 points that don't have anything on them. And then if you are looking to do a mind map, there's an organization or a website called spicynodes.org. And it can help you kind of create a mind map. You can also do this at home if you have just a blank wall and you just want to post colored post-its or just simple yellow post-its and just kind of have your mind map from there. You can draw this on a whiteboard with dry erase. You can do it just sitting down with a blank piece of paper and a pen. Mind maps are very easy to do, but very helpful in making you successful at your writing. Once you have your ideas and kind of where it is you want to go with your writing, then you want to move into the actual organization. So looking at slide 11, they have an outline and an example of what a business outline looks like. So taking all those ideas from the mind map and putting it in some sort of way to organize your mind map Outlines help you classify your similar ideas. They help you identify your major and minor points, but then they also help you figure out if you're going to take the direct or indirect approach. So you can see here in our outline that they have the introduction, which is the purpose, main points, and preview. Then they ask themselves, why should we create a frequent stay program? Because of 1, 2, 3. So how should we develop the program? And then they kind of break it down. So they have their points there, and you can see how it's organized in a very easy format. And it's very easy for the reader to read it as well and take away kind of the key points. Moving on to slide 12, I just mentioned this briefly, but the direct and indirect approach. Remember, the direct approach, you want to have the purpose of your writing right up front. You are getting it right out of the way. You are putting it right up front. This is why you are reading this. This is why I'm writing this. I am requesting this. I am needing this. I would like to see this. But you are putting it right up front. The indirect approach is where you are putting kind of some background information and explanation before you even get to the purpose of it. So, looking at slide number 12, can you identify the purpose, main points, and preview of this paragraph? The paragraph itself says, thank you for hiring our firm to redesign Bistro Q's menu. This report discusses our initial ideas and serves as a starting point for discussion. We're excited about the opportunity to work with you and are confident that together we'll create an attractive, innovative menu that is easy to understand. In this report, you will read the project objectives as we understand them, our straw model design, a proposed budget, and next steps. We look forward to your feedback on our proposed approach at our next meeting on November 1st. So moving to slide 13. So taking that paragraph, you can see the direct approach is right away because the purpose is right up front. Thank you for hiring our firm to redesign Bistro Q's menu. So without even knowing any background, you know that this firm has been hired to redesign the menu. The main points are we're excited about the opportunity to work with you and are confident that together we'll create an attractive, innovative menu. And then the preview, in this report, you'll read the project objectives as we understand them, and they lay out what they would find in the following pages of the report. Now, I kind of went through those next 3 slides. I'm now on the slide of indirect approach for the introduction. So here's another paragraph where we're now look at how the indirect approach looks in business writing. Last week you mentioned that you would like to do something special for our major clients. Based on my discussions with several people over the past 6 months, I recommend building a community of our key product users. In this proposal, I'll discuss what other firms are doing and what results they have seen from building client communities. You'll see the potential benefits of hosting a conference for our top 50 clients, improving the perception of our brand and increasing future sales. So again, the purpose is you would like to do something special for our major clients. It's still kind of up front, but you know, there's still some sort of explanation that is before it. The main points are recommend building a community of our key product users. And then finally, preview. In this proposal I'll discuss. The preview is always very simple to find because it talks about in this proposal. You're always going to see what's previewed ahead. So key thing to remember, direct is where the purpose is right up front. Indirect is where it is got some explanation and benefit beforehand. I don't think that was the best example, but you take with what the book gives you. If you are confused about this, make sure you send me an email and I'll get you guys better examples. But I can stress to you, we will see indirect and direct purpose, or indirect and direct organizational plans numerous times ad nauseum throughout the rest of the class and in different examples, but I can still send you examples if you have confusion about them. Looking at slide 20, the writing process, we are now moving on to drafting. So the difference between drafting and revising, drafting is you are actually composing the preliminary version of your message. So you are actually putting all of your mind map and everything into some sort of writing. If you have done well throughout the audience analysis and the planning, this is going to be a breeze for you. The paper's pretty much going to write itself. So next slide, slide 21. We've all procrastinated, right? We've all put off something that we know we needed to do. We ended up doing it last minute. Probably didn't get our best effort. It probably didn't get the full effort that it actually deserved. But it is safe to say, myself included, we have all procrastinated on some sort of task in our lifetime. If you have not, then you are very lucky. Procrastination is just a habit. So a week or two before the deadline, a week or two before the deadline. Here are things that you can do to stop procrastinating. Pretend your first draft is an essay exam. So set a timer, consult your outline, and write. So that's a way to get over it. You have to give an oral presentation on your subject, and you have 10 minutes. Go. That's another way. So these are kind of prompts and ways to get you to stop procrastinating. Set small goals for yourself. Maybe write the first paragraph and then reward yourself. So if I talk about chapter 4 in the writing process, I'm going to take a sip of coffee. When we're writing, it is inevitable we are going to experience probably what some of us would call writer's block, right? I mean, you just hit a wall. You cannot process any ideas. You can't come up with anything new. You can't put content together. It happens. So the book talks about ways that you can overcome writer's block that could be beneficial for you in the future. Make sure you choose the right environment. You know, you don't want to do writing at a rock show sitting in the back of the table. If you like it to be peace and quiet, you probably don't want to go to a Starbucks on a Saturday morning. If you can't sit in peace and quiet, if that's something that's distractful, then maybe a Starbucks is a better place for you to go. But making sure that the right environment that's conducive to you, making sure you put yourself in the right environment is going to be beneficial and ultimately most effective for your writing. Minimize distractions. You don't want, if you have kids, you don't want your kids to be running around while you are trying to write because it's going to be distracting. You're not going to be able to clearly focus on putting your thoughts to paper. Schedule a reasonable block of time. I'm not going to get anything done in 20 minutes, so make sure you give yourself a half hour, an hour, however long. But you also don't want to say, I'm going to spend all day on Saturday writing. I'm going to wake up at 7 and I'm going to write until 11:30 at night. It's just not beneficial. I mean, very few people that might work for, but you need to make sure that you give yourself blocks of time that are considered reasonable. State your purpose in writing. Put it on a Post-it above your desk or put it off to the side where it is that you're going to look often so that you always are constantly non-verbally reminding yourself what it is that you're trying to achieve in your writing. Write freely, so just start writing. You can edit later, but just write freely. Don't concern yourself so much with the style. You just want to make sure that you're getting everything down that's coming to mind. Think out loud. So talk to yourself. Talk things out. It's helpful and it's very beneficial. And then write the easiest parts first, making sure that you get those out of the way, and then that way you can challenge yourself later. Other things that you do, other types of business writing, you write business emails. So guidelines to follow when you are writing business emails. Follow the company standards for the salutation. So making sure that however your company, whatever rules that they follow, make sure you follow those as well. Make sure that you remember that you're a representative of your company. So if you're going to go off and do your own thing, then you want to do it maybe in a way that's not going to be so against the rules of your company. If your company has, Matthew 25, we don't have really rules for the salutation, but you want to make sure that you just follow whatever company rules are set in place. Use a descriptive, attention-grabbing subject line. You don't want to just put in meeting, but you want to talk about possible agenda items for Monday's afternoon's meeting. Something as simple as that. That way the reader of the email knows, oh, okay, I should read this because it has to do with something for Monday's meeting. It's not just a general email about meetings. Do not copy the world. So don't CC everybody. Only CC people if it is absolutely necessary that they are privy to the information you're sending. Likewise, use BCC sparingly. If you don't know what BCC is, it is blind carbon copy. If I were to send an email to you, but I BCC'd my department head, it would mean that you would see the email from me, but you would not see that I have BCC'd the department head for communication, because that's what blind carbon copy is. Keep emails short and skimmable. You're not writing a novel. Emails are short messages that you are just sending out. Check your tone. Don't write in all caps and don't use exclamation points. Don't put smileys all over. Remember, business professional. Provide context. So while it is a short message, you want to make sure that enough context is provided so that the reader understands what it is that you're talking about. Really shouldn't have any follow-up questions. And then follow company standards for the closing and signature line. Now, here is something that with Matthew 25, because we are a Christian affiliated organization, that when we send emails and we sign off, it's very simple to put like in his word or blessings, because that is something that people are used to seeing. That might not be conducive for something that you would send out unless you do work for a religious organization as well, but that is something that is not uncommon for us to send on our emails. Slide 24, a sample email. So this is kind of the best example of what you would see in a business professional email. This is from Kara Corrigan sending an email to Kathy saying, when's a good time for me to pick up the lunch vouchers for the visitors from Penngate? We had talked about bringing the consultants to the cafeteria to save time. Provides enough context. No one's really CC'd. Short and skimmable. We don't see what the subject of the email is, but we know that it has to do with something that's going to happen with a lunch date with visitors that are coming from a different organization. So enough context is provided that Kathy would be able to understand what is being asked of her. The fourth learning objective now, revising. So think about your reading. Remember what you read. What's the difference now between revising and proofreading? You know, there is a difference. You're making edits on both fronts, but there's a difference between revising and proofreading. Revising is just basically modifying to make improvements. You are still making changes to the actual text itself. If you have time when you're writing, put your writing away and walk away. Go to sleep on it for a night. This is, again, why it's key not to procrastinate, so that you have enough time so you can do this. If it's something you've been spending a lot of time on, then you don't want to put everything up until the last minute so you don't have time to walk away. You need that break, because at this point you're married to the piece that you are writing. So you need to take a break from it, walk away, so that your mind can get fresh. You can take a fresh look back and just say, okay, I've had a break, I've had a day off from writing, now I'm going to come back and try and, see if anything came to me overnight. 3 steps to revising. You look at content, style, and correctness. So when you look at content, reread your purpose statement and the entire draft to get an overview of your message. So again, that purpose statement, if you have that right there on your desk or on your wall somewhere, make sure that you visit that, and then make sure that you have a good overview of your message when you read it. You have a good sense of what it is that you're putting. Style, so read each paragraph again, aloud if you can, to get the feel for the rhythm and flow of your writing. So again, make sure that it just flows naturally. It doesn't sound very choppy. It doesn't sound like 3 different sections put together, but it's one flowing, fluid, solid piece of writing. And then correctness, again, identify problems with grammar, spelling, punctuation, and word usage. Last learning objective, proofreading. Final quality control check of your message. By the time you are proofreading, you are no longer making edits unless they are small errors in typographical or spelling or grammar errors. You are looking, and I am on slide, 28 now. You are looking for those hard to spot errors. Misused words that spell checker won't check. Spell checker only finds words that are misspelled. However, if you are using the wrong form of a word, so for instance, there, and there, spell checker will not red flag any of the wrong versions if it's spelled correctly. That's not what spell checker does. It just, if there is a typo. If you have repeated or omitted words, so again, if you're missing a word, or if you said a word twice, sometimes spell checker gets it, but you can't always count on that. So just making sure. And again, this is where it's helpful for you to read aloud so that you are able to kind of get a sense for it. You're not just looking it over. Proper names and numbers, and titles and headings. These two I'm kind of lumping together because you want to make sure if you are addressing somebody or if you are referring to somebody that you have them identified correctly. You have their title correct, you have their any of your numbers, if it's facts and figures, if it is data, you want to make sure everything adds up and that everything is represented correctly. And then again, more errors to catch. Next slide. Proofread and print. So don't look on your screen. Print it off and look over it. So that way you are able to make edits, and you can get like a fresh, tangible piece of paper that you can look at. Print on yellow or pink paper. For some reason, the book suggests that it is easier to look at things and read things on yellow or pink paper because we're so used to looking at white, and our eyes are so used to looking at black text or black font on white paper that printing on yellow or pink might be more beneficial to you. Wait a few hours or overnight. Again, step away from it so you can get a fresh feel. Use a ruler to guide and slow down your eyes. Again, we read so quickly when we're looking at it. If you use a ruler, it'll kind of slow you down so you focus strictly on that line that's, right in front of you. And then read backwards or one sentence at a time. I do this a lot when we are reading newsletters or donor letters or asks that we send out to donors at Matthew 25. Just read it backwards, that way you're not reading it so much because you've been writing this for so long, you know what it's going to say. Reading it backwards, though, that'll help you catch those spelling errors or those graphical errors. Next slide. So what is wrong with these sentences? Number 1, they're too busy with their report to be there for the hearing. This is not something that would be caught in spell check. Again, this is the example I was talking about earlier. All of those theirs are the wrong version. So they're too busy should be there with the apostrophe RE. With their report should be the THEIR. To be there for the hearing, THERE. So you can look at these other examples. I won't go through them all, but you can look and see if you can catch the errors that are, that would be, the hard to spot. So you can figure out what's wrong with these sentences. And I think that is done for chapter 4. So again, we have Aplia due and we have a discussion board due. So make sure that you complete those. And I will talk to you guys soon. If you have any questions from anything from this lecture, send me an email and I'll be happy to answer it, or just ask me at the beginning of our next class. Have a good day. Bye.